Good afternoon. This is a photo. I chose this photo. This is at the mouth of the Gowanus Canal, Gowanus Bay, and I chose it in part because our pier, where we have our facility built, is this pier here. It's the end of 29th Street. So we're not on the canal, but we are just outside the mouth of the canal. This I put in here. SIMS Municipal Recycling is part of a larger company, SIMS Metal Management. I'm not really trying to promote what we do globally, but actually really the point here is that this is what we're really doing as part of a global commodities business. It's not your Boy Scout paper collection route situation. I mean, it's really, we sell scrap metal. We may be selling a ship to Turkey this week, and next week it'll go to steel mills in Mexico and then Korea. Same with paper mills. Paper goes to paper mills all around the world. Plastics, all of these. And really, in terms of what we're doing in here in New York is an urban mine. I mean, where our source of material is human activity. So New York is a gigantic producer of these materials. And outside of, before I talk about what we've done here in Sunset Park, on the 30th Street Pier and our municipal recycling program, prior to that, our core business is really on the scrap metal recycling side. And the company's been doing that for many decades in New York City. This is a barge load of cars coming out of our Queens site, flattened cars that is, obviously, on the Newtown Creek, going to our shredder in Jersey City. We also actually on Gowanus Canal, probably many of you know, so near the Outerbridge there's a scrap metal operation. That is not our facility. We don't own or operate that. However, we do buy their scrap. So there'll be a barge often positioned off their bulkhead. They will load that scrap into barges, and those are our barges, which we provided them. We then float those barges over to our shredder in Jersey City, where we produce a shredded scrap product, which is feedstock for steel mills all around the world. And I'm sure people have varying opinions about that facility being there on the creek, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, I think certainly one thing is a positive is that it's we're putting it on the water, put 1,000 tons on a barge. You can do the math. Those are trucks that are not. That's tonnage that's not being put on trucks because eventually it has to get out of the city one way or the other. We do have, in addition to our Brooklyn site, we have facilities up in Stamford, Bronx River, Newtown Creek, Jersey City, Albany, and really all of the vast majority of the movement between our facilities we do on the water. Water is a very efficient way for us to move material. It's an inexpensive way for us to move material. So as a consequence, we have a very large barge fleet. So in terms of the municipal recycling program, our company has a long-term contract with the Department of Sanitation. And under that contract, we handle 100% of the metal, glass, and plastic the Department of Sanitation collects from New York City New Yorkers and nonprofit institutions. They deliver that material to us. We're responsible for processing and marketing it. And we provide the city as part of our contract for locations where their trucks can dump. Their main objective is to minimize the transportation distances for their collection vehicles. So we have our facility in the Bronx, on the Bronx River, Hunts Point, and that facility receives sanitation collection trucks from northern Manhattan and the Bronx. We have a facility on Newtown Creek, on the Queens side of Newtown Creek. That facility receives sanitation trucks from Queens. We have a facility in Jersey City, which receives Staten Island and Lower Manhattan. And then we have the new facility we've opened in Sunset Park, Brooklyn. This map is a little bit dated. It's actually not under construction. It's operating since last December. But this facility receives Brooklyn sanitation trucks. And then has been proposed for quite a long time, a reactivation of a marine transfer station on Gansford Street on the Hudson River. That's a city project. It's in the middle of the Hudson River Park. I can't, it's obviously a very busy area, and I don't want to predict whether that will ever happen or not. But regardless of what the future of that, all of the material we receive in these trucks, we then barge. Now that Brooklyn is open, we are barging our Queens and Bronx materials down to Sunset Park, Brooklyn, and Jersey City just retains and processes the material it receives. And then from Brooklyn, we barge out, we rail out, and we truck out. This was the conceptual design that we put together for the facility long before we broke ground. And I'll just point out a couple of things. Basically, this is 29th Street. We bring in visitors and our employees on a parking lot on the north side of the lot. We separate them from our truck traffic. These are inbound sanitation trucks delivering recyclables that will have been collected in Brooklyn, as well as tractor trailers that are coming to take sorted products that we're selling by truck. We have a three-story actually, education center, or visitors administration building really on the ground floor. Second floor is an education center about recycling, obviously. And third floor is you go up there to a bridge. Kids will have the opportunity to go across and from a viewing platform in here see our tipping floors, see the barges being unloaded, see materials being processed. And it's working out well. We've really just activated that in the last couple of weeks. I just left 30 or 40 screaming sixth graders this morning, hopefully learning something about recycling as they roll balls and spin dials and things. Some of the things we did here, the basic recycling operation, sanitation trucks come in here and dump their mixed recyclables. We bring in our barge loads of material from our other sites under this roof. We unload them with a crane. This is really what we call the tipping floor. It's taking the raw material into a in-feed conveyor, and then throughout here is a vast array of processing equipment where we sort these mixed recyclables into a pretty big array of different grades of plastic, metals, some paper, and glass. And then from here, we may be sending out baled product in tractor trailers. We also load out rail cars with baled tin cans, and certain products go out by barge, namely glass and large bulky metal objects. And this is an area that we sort of carved out for future recycling businesses. A couple of things we do on site: we handle all of our stormwater in a stormwater retention pond here. We put in a very large 600 kilowatt solar array here. And throughout, a lot of these landscape features also serve to capture and retain stormwater. This was what we actually built, which fortunately kind of looks like the plan. Here's the solar array I mentioned. This is before a lot of the vegetation came in. This photo is actually almost a year old now. But this is our pond here, education center, processing building, and the rail. This rail connects down to the 65th Street float bridge. That's the processing system, spanking new. It doesn't look quite so pristine anymore. We've been running for a year, but it's the largest sorting system of this type for mixed residential recyclables in the country, if not the world. This is, again, not so much about the Gowanus, obviously, but this is just to assure people we do actually process and sell these materials. Recycling is a real viable business for us, and our whole business hinges on, it hinges on two things. It hinges on people participating in the recycling program, and it hinges on us being able to convert those materials into commodities that meet standards and specifications for our customers. Some of the things outside of just the pure recycling function that I think relate to this sort of sustainability issue and design and where people are going in this future of climate change and so forth. We chose, decided I think back in about 2006 to elevate our pier in anticipation of sea level rise and storm surges, which turned out to come into play far sooner than I expected it to. We were still in construction when Sandy hit, but we elevated the areas of the site that where the buildings sit and where all of our processing equipment is by about 4 feet, and we elevated our electrical gear another 2 feet after Sandy, just for safe measure. So The net effect of that is all of our buildings are still outside of the new FEMA floodplain maps. We've got about 11 inches to spare on that. We brought in a mixture of recycled materials to elevate the pier. We used a lot of our crushed recycled glass, blended that with mole rock from the subway tunneling operations, and then to meet certain engineering requirements, we also brought in some other select fill and stone. In total, we brought in about, I think, 33,000 tons of material. It is a barge serve facility. That's the basis for the bulk of the material comes in by water, and the majority of the material, glass and metal, make up the majority of the material by weight, also leave the facility by water. So one of the things that, Community Board 7 there was very, not initially, I mean, over time, they basically grew open to bring us building the facility here, and they've become really good partners of it. We've become partners with them and I think friends with them over the course of building and operating this facility, but I can tell you one of the earliest things that made this at all palatable to them was the fact that it is largely a barge and rail served facility. The biggest challenge with recycling facilities or waste facilities is really truck traffic, or the thing that's considered most noxious more than anything else. So the goal of this, aside from its efficiency, is really keeping truck traffic to a minimum. We did extend the rail into our site. The city's put a lot of money into revamping the freight rail along the Brooklyn waterfront and making use of the 65th Street rail. I think we're actually now one of the only real, I hate to say this, users of the rail out of there, but we do make good use of it. We send out about a dozen rail cars a month of baled tin cans. So your tin cans are taking the train ride to steel mills largely in Cleveland. And our solar, I mentioned the solar array we put in, and this is the most arduous permitting process I've ever been in. I've gone through about 4 years now, but I'm actually finally pulling the permits. We're gonna start pouring concrete for the foundation for our wind turbine this month. So hope to have that up, if not commissioned, by Thanksgiving. Probably take another few months to get Con Ed and everybody signed off before we flip the switch, but hopefully that will be something people will be pleased to see on the Brooklyn waterfront. It's it's not massive. It's not one of these multi-megawatt units you might see in wind farms, but it's not a toy either. It's a 100 kilowatt unit with about 120-foot hub height. So this up here will be about 150 at the top of the blade. And then I know Gina's here. I'm sure she's going to talk about this more. When we were in the design stage, we kind of have heard of these various mussel and oyster cultivation efforts. I was like, what can we do here? And we got together with Scape, and the Baykeeper steered us to Scape, and we sort of looked at what could we do. Early enough on in the design stage, it would not be we weren't in a position to spend a lot of money, but we said we could hang off of our mooring pier, which is a 190-foot long pier where we don't have barge activity. The backside of it, we could hang some structures or netting to cultivate mussels, and all that entailed was simply putting in some stainless steel inserts into these precast panels. We screw eye-rings into that, and that was sort of the extent of the infrastructure investment on our part. And then working with Scape, they came up with these different designs for different rope panels and organized volunteers to weave those. This is fuzzy rope that is actually used in the professional mussel cultivation industry, applied here, not in this case to eat them, but for just habitat. And they're quite occupied, by the way. And this is just a shot of our education center without the children. And I have brought some of the cards. I have a nice, competent young woman working with me who runs this, and I brought some of her cards. So if anybody has schools, it's really designed around for kids 3 through 8th grades, but I think adults enjoy it as well. So if anybody wants information on that, or knows if someone is a teacher or has kids, work with your school, I'd be very happy to connect you. And then finally, that's another shot of it. That would be your bridge there to the recycling building. Thank you.